What's up? How you doing? Here we are, evening time. Beautiful evening. Not a cloud in the sky. Very slight breeze, about 2.3 miles an hour from west to east. Very nice out. I don't know, it's very enjoyable. I'm going to talk a little bit about boxing, right? So, when I was a kid, Muhammad Ali was the champion of the world, and my father was a huge Muhammad Ali fan. He liked the style that he had. He liked the that old-fashioned type of boxing. He didn't like swarmers. So when Muhammad Ali would fight, and it was free in those days, my father would announce it, you know, tonight there's an Ali fight, and the excitement in my house was off the charts. We had a neighbor who lived a couple of doors up from us, and my father would give him a call, or maybe it was like this, and he'd say, Ali's fighting tonight. And everybody was watching Muhammad Ali. They loved the personality, especially later on. So I would sit in the kitchen. We had this couch, and I would wait and wait and wait and wait, and it was like, when's the fight gonna happen? And I thought it was whenever they felt like coming out. But that's not how it goes. They fight at around 11 East Coast time, 8 o'clock here. But when I was a kid, I didn't know that. I thought it was just whenever you feel like fighting. And I remember the Frazier fights. I remember the Ken Norton fights. And of course, George Foreman, which Ali, he got lucky on that. I mean, George Foreman, I don't know, he got tired, you know, the rope-a-dope thing. But nobody really fights like that anymore. I mean, to get yourself to take a beating as a strategy to beat the other guy because he gets tired from swinging is not a good strategy. Eventually, your brain will not recover from that. But and George Foreman, the power, you know, he didn't have the crazy speed like Ali had, nor did he have the grace that Ali had, but he had a lot of power behind the punch. And to talk to him, I mean, to talk about him for a second, I remember I was in my room. I think it was Ring Magazine or KO Magazine. I was sitting on my bed, and I had just, I don't know, a while ago, had watched an episode of Sanford and Son where George Foreman shows up. It's like an acting thing, I don't know. And I was like, whatever happened to George Foreman? It's like he was young back then. He can't be that old now. And as I'm thinking about that, I'm flipping through the pages, flipping, and the last page in this boxing magazine had a little picture of I think it was a high school gymnasium with a ring, and it said George Foreman makes comeback. I was like, I had to read that a couple of times, and I was very excited because, you know, I just like George Foreman. Turns out George Foreman was a really nice guy, still is, you know, he's still alive, but he played this role based on Sonny Liston, you know, that mean, angry, you know, scary guy, but he really wasn't like that. Good-natured guy, good personality, decent man. So I started following his comeback, and every time he would fight, I'd watch it if it was on television, and I was amazed that he was able to fight younger guys. I know they weren't top, they weren't rated, you know, like the top 10 or ranked, but he was beating them, and I was very excited. They'd say Foreman would fight, I'd tune it in. So anyway, Ali beat him in Zaire, and then there was no rematch. And you hear all these stories, Foreman didn't want one, he did want one, Ali wouldn't give him one. You don't know what the truth is. You have to find somebody who knew what was going on at the time to let you know what was, you know, what the true story is. So he does the rope-a-dope, he wins the fight, and then you would think in the contract, I don't know, in those days they didn't think of these things, that if you're the champion and you lose, it's an automatic rematch. But they didn't have that in the contract. So George continued on, and then he spiraled downward. He fought other guys, and he lost. Then he had some kind of religious experience, left boxing, came back, like I said. But so anyway, the Ali fights were very exciting when I was a kid for me. And I'd wait and I'd watch the whole thing. I was so excited. It's Muhammad Ali fighting, and I was a fan of his. So I remember the Ken Norton fights, though, and styles make fights. So you see Ken Norton fights Ali. Ali has a very hard time with Ken Norton. Matter of fact, one of the fights that they gave to Ali, Ken Norton beat him, but they still gave it to Muhammad Ali. And on the other side of that, George Foreman did not have a hard time at all with Ken Norton. Ken Norton was nothing to him, but he lost. But George Foreman lost to Ali. So it's all about matching up the styles. You know, just because Foreman could beat Ken Norton did not mean, or didn't translate, that he could beat Muhammad Ali easily, which he couldn't, and he didn't. So that was an exciting time. And of course, you know, the lighter weights like Marvin Hagler, my favorite fighter. I loved watching Marvin Hagler fight. And then Mike Tyson came around, and so my father and I would watch fights. That was one of our, you know, things we would do together, watch boxing. Matter of fact, Tuesday night fights, I was always home. Like, I was home anyway, but I wasn't like one of those guys, I gotta go to the club. I didn't do any of that. But Tuesday nights, you know, I was home at the kitchen table, and we would watch Tuesday night fights with, I think it was Nick Charles and Sean O'Grady. And it was kind of unknown guys, you know, but we loved it. We'd sit there at the kitchen table, you know, having a snack, and watching these things, and then we talk about them. But yeah, it was really a good, you know, good moment between me and my father watching these fights. So then there was USA Network Boxing, and that's when Mike Tyson came on the scene. This is like 1985. And I remember I would go into the back room. We had a TV back there. My father would be watching boxing, and I'd sit down on the couch, and Mike Tyson would fight frequently on that. And my father was like, I don't like this guy Tyson. He doesn't fight clean. He swarms. And I like that style. I prefer Mike Tyson's style over Ali's style. Mike Tyson fought like Rocky Marciano. He fought like Joe Frazier. He was kind of like a Jack Dempsey. And so I enjoyed that, you know, getting all over you and punching you with accurate shots. He wasn't like hitting the air. And it is my opinion, you know, I could be wrong because it never happened, but my opinion is if you put Mike Tyson prime versus Muhammad Ali prime, I think Mike Tyson would win, because he was more of a brutal fighter. And then others come back and they make the argument that Muhammad Ali beat a fighter that was like Mike Tyson, and that was Sonny Liston. But Sonny Liston was not quite like, you know, I mean, he was a very strong fighter, but he wasn't like a Tyson. You know, different style. It wasn't exactly like a Tyson. But I really think that Tyson versus Ali, Tyson would have won. And let's not forget that Muhammad Ali lost 3 prime years of his life while that whole Vietnam War thing was going on with the Supreme Court. 3 years. That was the prime of his fighting career. It was those 3 years, and he lost out. So who knows how great he would have been if those 3 years were not taken away from him. But, you know, he was a good, respectable guy, good champion. But, you know, Mike Tyson, a little bit more exciting. And didn't have to revert, or he didn't have to go to the style of getting hit to win a fight. Good tune there. You know, he would knock you out, you know, 3, 4, 5 rounds, sometimes even the first round, like Michael Spinks. And I think the greatest weapon that Mike Tyson had was not his boxing ability. It was his ability to intimidate, to scare you, because that's like 90% of the fight is right there. the stare down, and he would put the fear that he had, he would put it into people, and they would get in there all nervous, and he would knock them out. So they feared Mike Tyson. And then once that fear vanished, then a lot of people would fight him, and it wasn't as impressive anymore. Like when Buster Douglas went in Tokyo, in Japan, and beat Mike Tyson. I was watching that night, 42-1 underdog, Buster Douglas, James Douglas, and he beat Mike Tyson. But that had a little bit of a glitch. 2 LAPD, one going that way, one going that way. Let him go. So there's a moment in the Buster Douglas Tyson fight where Tyson knocks down James Buster Douglas, and if anybody knows anything about the fight, they know that there was a long count. You should have been counted out at 10 seconds, but if you follow the clock, the referee goes to 13, and then Douglas gets up. And if they had counted the normal way, he would have been, a TKO on that, and Tyson would have won the fight, and the outcome, would have continued on as a different outcome. But here's the argument against that. The argument is that Buster Douglas was listening to the ref count. He could have gotten up at 7, he could have gotten up at 6, but he waited for the full, 9 seconds to start getting up because he needed the rest. And every fighter knows that. You wait until the last moment, and then you get up. So if the ref screwed up on the counting, that doesn't mean that Buster Douglas couldn't have gotten up at 7 or 6, right? So Mike Tyson, in interviews will say that there was a long count, which is true. There was a long count, but that doesn't necessarily mean that Buster Douglas couldn't have gotten up earlier if the referee was counting on time. But I was very shocked that night. I remember watching that, and I was like blown away that Mike Tyson was getting tagged with such hard punches. And then he got knocked down, and eventually he got counted out. And there's a scene in the fight, there's a part of the fight where he's searching for the mouthpiece, as if that's important at that moment. Just get up if you can. But he couldn't. And then everything for Mike Tyson spiraled out of control. But I like Mike Tyson. Mike Tyson is very intelligent, very philosophical. If you listen to him talk, he knows a lot of stuff. I mean, philosophy is one of his strong areas. When you hear him speaking, it's almost like Customato is speaking through him. But yeah, very smart guy, Mike Tyson. And then once that happened in was it 90, then he wasn't as feared anymore. That intimidation that he had, that disappeared. Evander beat him. Lennox Lewis was able to take him out, and a few other fighters that weren't that good, they were able to beat him. But in his prime, from 1985 to just before the Buster Douglas fight, Mike Tyson was awesome. Mike Tyson was awesome. I love Mike Tyson. I love this style. I'm a big fan of that style, and he's going to fight again in the summertime with this Jake Paul guy. I mean, it could go either way. Jake Paul is young. One good shot, hitting a 57, 58-year-old man, one good shot can take him down. I'm talking about Tyson going down. But Tyson is training. They're doing all these videos that they're releasing with Tyson in the gym, hitting the pads, hitting the heavy bag. Looks very good for his age. Looks very good for a guy who's 30. And I wish him well. I hope Mike Tyson wins. Believe me, Muhammad Ali would have fought until he was 70 if he didn't have that issue with Parkinson's. So, yeah, very excited. I know it's not a serious fight. I mean, it's a fight, but it's not like Mike Tyson 25 versus another fighter 25. But we'll see what happens. I just hope nobody gets injured to the point where, it's a permanent injury. Like, what was his name? Duck Koo Kim. Korean fighter that Ray Boom Boom Mancini fought, and he ended up dying. Very sad. A lot of things changed after that in boxing. They went to a 12-round max for championship fights. I remember I was out that night with my family, and my uncle was at my house, and he was in the kitchen. The lights were off and the TV was on, and he was sitting at the table watching this fight. And I came in and I caught the tail end of it, maybe the last couple of rounds, and Ray Boom Boom Mancini was beating this guy terribly, like vicious beating. And the fight finishes and the guy is out of it. And then we find out that he died. Very sad, very sad. His wife was pregnant at the time. So they did this whole thing later on. Ray Boom Boom went to Korea, South Korea, met with the son, so it's very hard. I know it was done in the name of the sport, but when you end up killing someone in the ring, it affects you psychologically, and you're never the same again. Ray Boom Boom Mancini was a great fighter, great fighter. That Livingston Bramble, yeah, that was a great fight. Mancini lost, had a rematch with him, lost that. But I think if the death of that Koo Kim didn't happen, Duck Koo Kim, Ray Boom Boom Mancini would have beaten Livingston Bramble. And you're talking here a good fighter, Livingston, with a good name, Livingston. So I used to watch him. A friend of mine ran into him one time at Sears. Good, compact. And that's the other misconception people have about fighting. They think that the taller you are, the more of an advantage you have over a, average height fighter. That's true to a point. But if you're too tall, that's a disadvantage. It's almost like when you're shooting free throws in basketball. Height helps you up to a point, and you get to be too tall, then you can't get that arch. Same thing in boxing. If you're too tall, the uppercuts aren't as effective, the body shots are not there. You have to hit the head, and a shorter guy will attack the body, attack the ribs, solar plexus, and you will get extremely tired from body shots, and you can get knocked out by a good body shot in this area. Get knocked out. I've seen guys get hit in the abdomen, right around the heart area sometimes, and they get knocked out. And it's a delayed reaction, be like a few shots here, and then you keep going, and then you hit him a little bit more, and guy goes down. But if you're 5'10" to 6'1", 6'2", if you're like 6'8", 6'9", like a basketball player, and you're trying to fight, a shorter guy will have an advantage. Not all the time. Depends on the fighter, obviously. I mean, there are people that are tall, and they could fight an average size guy and knock him out, no problem. But it's just that you have better leverage at a shorter height than you do from an angle fighting from up here, a shorter guy. Now, if you're both 6'7", then yeah, that's there's no advantage there. Also, you start looking like Rope Man when you're too tall. That superhero there, Baby Man, and you had Rope Man and Diaper Man and all that. Diaper Man, not Baby Man. Your hands start becoming like spaghetti. They're all over the place, and then a smaller guy will get underneath and start attacking the body and possibly hitting you in the chin from uppercuts that are lower than you. So it's an advantage to be a little bit shorter than your competitor. I mean, obviously you don't have the reach advantage anymore, but a reach advantage is only so good. I mean, look at Mike Tyson. I think he had 71-inch reach. I'm not 100% sure on that, but he didn't have long arms, but he was able to duck underneath, and he had that Customato style of fighting, the bobbing of the head, which a lot of guys in the UFC do not have. They for some reason, that's hard to teach later on. You have to learn that when you're younger, that head movement, and the whole, it's the whole body actually, side to side. You're able to slip punches. They don't have that for some reason. I'm not saying like all of them don't have it, but the majority do not have that ability. And that is why you notice a lot of UFC guys that try to transition into boxing, because the money is better, more lucrative, you have more money involved there. They have a hard time beating boxers. But you take a boxer and you put him in the UFC, and the UFC guy will take out the boxer in like, a couple of minutes, if that. I mean, obviously they train to, fight that kind of fight as a boxer, but if they didn't train, if you took a fighter, a boxer, straight out of a gym that never had any exposure to chokeholds or any of that, a UFC guy would probably take him out in 30-40 seconds in that kind of a fight. But in the ring, where it's just upright boxing, they have a hard time. And they don't have good upper body movement. So, anyway, I do miss Tuesday night fights. I wish they were still on. I would watch them. And now it's not even, that impressive to get fights anymore. A lot of it's glitchy. Tried to get a couple of fights recently, and it ends up freezing on you at some point. I don't know what's going on with these fights. They're glitchy. And then you wait, 15 minutes after the fight finishes. Don't listen to the results. Go on YouTube, and you could find it there for nothing. So yeah, fast car going by. Going to buy eggs for his mom. Another thing I miss watching, me and my father would watch the rodeo. Ty Murray, that was our favorite. They'd get on the bull, and they'd ride that thing for 8 seconds, if you could stay on it for 8. And then even if you could, there was a scale. How difficult was that bull? And so some people would stay 8 seconds, but did not mean that you would win automatically just because you were on there for 8. You got a score on the difficulty as well as being on there for 8 seconds. So we used to watch that pretty much every night. There was some station that had professional bull riding. Yeah, the horses too were good, but I loved watching the bulls. They'd get on these big animals, 4,000-pound animal, and this thing for some reason did not want you on its back. I don't know, it's like annoying to them, so they would like kick up and down like this, and you're up there, I just at first I was like, I'm not gonna watch this is like not my style. And then I watched a few things and I said, I like this, it's my style. But I haven't seen bull riding now in a while. There was an episode one time on the $6 Million Man. I believe it was a horse that he was on. I could be wrong, it's many years, but I believe it was a horse. And he was riding a horse. He had to stay on it for 8 seconds. The horse was kicking up and down, and the $6 Million Man was squeezing with his bionic legs. Every time the horse would get a little bit out of control, Steve Austin there would squeeze the belly of the horse, and the horse would calm down a little bit. At some point, you'd break the ribs, right? So that's what Paulie said to Rocky. He said, you're breaking the ribs. It's not a good way to train, Crow going by. Not a good way to train, to go to what do they call it, meat houses there, and then start, with your wraps, start beating on the ribs. You'll mess up your knuckles. You'll screw up your hand. Those are ribs. It's one thing to be hitting a nice soft memory foam mattress, and even that after a while is going to hurt your hands, but to hit ribs like that, no, not a good idea. And that Rocky thing, he does some weird punches. I don't know, they come in weird angles. You see that fight in Rocky, and I'm jumping around here, but that's how it goes. that fight with Rocky and Apollo, you can tell that there's some fake footage in there. Does not belong in there, you know. And they took that out of some Muhammad Ali fight. It's like they're scanning the camera. You see all these people there, and then when you see the actual place, which is, I've been there. I walked in. It used to be called the Olympic Auditorium. They were remodeling it one year, and I said, I'm going to go in here, see if I can get a job in here. And when I went in, they were installing the chairs. Like 90% of the chairs were in, and then the guys down below were working on the ring, putting it together. And I sat up at the top looking down, and I go, this is where they filmed portions of the Rocky Apollo fight. And then the rest of it was filmed at the I think the LA Auditorium, which I've been in also. But the Olympic Auditorium one, that's where they shot most of it. So I was like, wow, this is where they did it. And in the past, that used to be a very popular venue for fighting, for Friday night fights, things like that. And then it kind of disappeared, and they tried to revive it, and it didn't last. You know, they wanted to bring back local fighters fighting, and I would have gone to that every Friday. I'm a big fan of the sport. I love it. But it didn't last, and now it's a Korean church. If you drive by, you will see that it's no longer a boxing place. It's a Korean gym. And then the Mickey's Gym, the inside, that used to be on 5th. Muhammad Ali trained there, George Foreman trained there. No longer there. I went there years ago. I shot a video. Now it's a parking lot. I would have loved to have seen that place in real life. A lot of people thought that that was in Philly. The exterior was in Philly. The interior was shot in LA. All the interior shots were in LA. But the exterior shots were in Philadelphia. Anyway, that's it. I am going to go in, make some food for tonight. I may be back, I may not, I don't know, we'll see how it goes. I may come out and have some nice tea later on. There's a cat over there watching me, I'm watching it. I put some food here for the cat. Very friendly, just sits there watching me. Alright, anyway, that's it for now. Ciao.